Top 15 rankings for quarterbacks going into week 9. Number 1, Russell Wilson. Could you say? What a season it's been for Russell Wilson. 26 touchdowns, and it's only the 9th week of the season. And once again, he'll have a great matchup. I don't care who he versus. You pencil him in for 35 to 40 fantasy points each and every week. He's in Buffalo this week. It's going to be cold a little, but it don't matter. Russell Wilson, he's got monsters on that roster. He's got DK, Lockett, Carson if he plays, and Russell will do his thing. So I think he'll finish the week as the number 1 quarterback. Number 2, you got Patrick Mahomes after coming off a 416-yard performance and 5 touchdowns versus the Jets this week. His numbers I don't think will be that great, but he'll be a great quarterback as usual. He's locked in the number 2 spot. Versus the Carolina Panthers, he'll still get his numbers. He'll still do his thing. The 3rd quarterback on my rankings for the week's Deshaun Watson. Ever since Bill O'Brien finally got fired out of Houston, he should have been fired once they traded DeAndre Hopkins away for virtually David Johnson and not even get a first rounder. But anyway, since the reins of O'Brien have been going off of Watson, he's been balling out as Deshaun Watson. And this week, he gets a plus matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I expect them to smoke him early and often, is Watson. He could have a monster fantasy game as well, is Deshaun. So this guy, I'm ranking him the 3rd quarterback going into the week with the matchup alone. The 4th is Kyle Murray. Another guy, MVP dark horse in my opinion, is Kyle Murray. This guy, he runs the ball a lot. He hits his receivers. He's got a good supporting cast around him. I think Chase Edmonds, adding him into the lineup, just helps Murray even more. He's a better receiving back out of the backfield than Kenyon Drake. So Murray, he's going to be a top 4 quarterback this week. Number 5 is Josh Allen. I see him for a bounce back this week, and it's matchup based. He's versus the Seattle Seahawks, and Allen, his last 4 games in fantasy have been mediocre at best. But this week, he's going to have to throw early and often. Buffalo in a big game at home again after coming off a nice victory versus the Patriots, but they versus Russ in Seattle. And the good thing is Seattle gives up the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So Allen, he's going to have a top 5 day. The 6th guy's Big Ben. It was a toss-up to me with Big Ben and Allen for that 5th spot, because Big Ben's matchups, Money in the Bank versus a weak Dallas Cowboy defense. But the only thing, I think James Conner, he's going to get some carries and touchdowns as well. But Ben, we could pencil him in for around 300 yards and 2 touchdowns at least, is Roethlisberger. The 7th guy is Justin Herbert. And this guy, he's putting up numbers all year. And if you luckily have him in your team or picked him up in week 4 or 5 when he was starting to get the buzz and making noise, you're lucky. This guy goes for 300 yards or 3 touchdowns each and every game. I know I say it and sound like a broken record a lot, but this guy, he's Money in the Bank as well. Herbert versus the Raiders. I got him at the 7th spot in the rankings, but he could definitely be top 3, which he's done a few times this year. The 8th guy, Aaron Rodgers, we'll see him tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football versus the San Francisco 49ers. And after a bad loss at home to a 1-5 Minnesota Viking team, you know that next game after a bad game, Aaron Rodgers goes off. We saw it a few weeks ago after a tough loss to Tampa Bay. Rodgers came back with a vengeance the next week versus the Houston Texans. So I think Aaron Rodgers, he'll be fine tonight. He'll have a great game, and he could put you that 35 to 40 point range if he really gets hot. The 9th quarterback I like this week is Tom Brady of the Tampa Bay Bucks in an NFC South division matchup in Tampa Bay on Sunday Night Football. Tom Brady will get Chris Godwin, it looks like, and Antonio Brown make his season debut with Brady in the Bucks. So Brady, we saw him last week, a mediocre game versus the New York Giants. He still had 20 fantasy points, but this game I think he could up the ante, and he could have anywhere from 25 to 40 is his ceiling in this one. The next one's Lamar Jackson. I know a lot of you owners drafted him early in your drafts. I even saw him go in the 1st round, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And right now, he hasn't been worth that 1st round pick. Lamar Jackson, I don't even think he's top 10 in fantasy points for quarterbacks this season. And this week, he's versus a pretty tough Indianapolis Colts defense. But I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to bounce back. He's going to have a good game. He's going to run the ball more. Baltimore, they need to win a game here. They're 5-2, but I think this is a tough game that they're going to have to try to pull out. Number 11, Cam Newton at quarterback. A guy was down on for the last few weeks, and why not? He didn't look good. He had a negative fantasy point day versus Denver. But now he's got the New York Jets coming up. Last week versus Buffalo, he had a mediocre fantasy game. And Cam, I expect them to run wild versus this Jet team. They got no one on defense who can hang with them or run them down really for the most part. So Cam Newton, I think he could get you 20 to 25 points. So he's number 11. Number 12 is Derek Carr of the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are going into that new Los Angeles Chargers stadium that them and the Rams share. What a stadium it is. But anyway, Carr, he's been solid for most of the season. But last week he didn't look good, but that was due to the weather in Cleveland with the heavy wind and the rain and hail also coming through. But Carr this week, he's indoors. He's versus a Charger defense that blows a million leads every week, it seems like. Carr's going to throw. I know his receivers haven't been great. Aguilar, Henry Ruggs, and Renfro are his main guys. So I think he's going to lean on Darren Waller a lot in this game, who's ranked my number 2 tight end of the week. So Derek Carr, go out there and start him. I think he could give you 25 to 30. The next guy, the 13th quarterback, Matt Ryan. He was a guy on my bench list this week. But in one league, I got no other choice but to start him. So I'm going to start him here. This time, Ryan's at home versus Carolina. He would have had a dud game if he didn't rush that ball into the touchdown. He would have finished with 10 fantasy points or something. Was Matt Ryan. So this week versus the Denver defense, that isn't that good. But I think they could hold Ryan down a little. I don't expect much in a high range of Ryan. I could see him 15 to 20 at most. Hopefully I'm wrong because I'm starting him in a few leagues. But Ryan, I got at 13th. Number 14's Ryan Tannehill. Him and the Tennessee Titans coming off of 2 losses. They're back home this week versus a tough Chicago Bear defense that came off a tough overtime loss to the New Orleans Saints. This Bear defense, they don't give an inch, man. They play tough. They play hard. Khalil Mack, he's the quarterback hunter. Tannehill, he's got great weapons, though, with Derrick Henry, Corey Davis, and A.J. Brown. But this team, the Bears, they don't give up many passing touchdowns, and they make you earn all your points. A lot of teams I see still starting Tannehill. He was on my bench list also this week. Just this matchup is brutal. So he's the 14th quarterback, and the 15th and final quarterback in the QB rankings for Week 9 is Drew Brees. Every week I doubt this guy, but every week he still puts up 20, 23 fantasy points. But this week he goes to Tampa. I know that defense is tough and rough. Aaron Rodgers, he only had 4 fantasy points last time Tampa played at home. So I think they could do a similar type of thing to Drew Brees, even though it looks like Michael Thomas and Sanders are coming back for this one. But this Tampa Bay defense, they're going to treat this ball game like a playoff game and try to get revenge for the Week 1 loss in New Orleans. So this is 15 quarterbacks this week. I'm ranking 1 to 15 going into Week 9.